Silence is the loudest thing I've ever heard. People don't understand that. They think battle is loud, and it is. God knows it is. But the silence after is louder. The silence where voices used to be. The silence where men used to laugh and curse and complain. That silence screams. I can't hear properly anymore. Haven't been able to since 1944. Got maybe 60% hearing in my left ear, 30 in my right. Doctor says the constant exposure to heavy gunfire destroyed something inside my ears. Tiny bones or hairs or something. Doesn't matter what. Point is, they're gone. Blown apart by the sound of war. But the ringing never stops. Never. High-pitched whine that's been with me for 8 years now. Sometimes it's quiet enough I can ignore it. Sometimes it's so loud I can't hear people talking right in front of me. And at night, when everything else goes quiet, that ringing is all there is. The sound of my war, playing on an endless loop inside my skull. Petty Officer First Class Thomas Sullivan. I was a gunner on the USS Johnston, a Fletcher-class destroyer in the Pacific Fleet. We were part of Taffy 3, escorting baby flat tops during the Battle off Samar, October 25th, 1944. I was 21 years old, farm kid from Iowa who'd never seen the ocean before I joined the Navy in 42. They put me on a 5-inch gun mount and taught me to load shells fast as humanly possible. Load, fire, until your arms felt like they'd fall off. Until the noise drilled into your brain and made a home there. I thought I knew what loud was. Thought I'd experienced real noise during our shakedown cruises, during gunnery practice, during the smaller engagements we'd been in before Samar. I didn't know anything. The battle off Samar taught me what noise really was. Taught me that sound could be a weapon, that it could kill you just as dead as a shell or a torpedo, that it could hollow you out from the inside, scoop out everything that made you human and replace it with ringing and echoes and silence. I survived that battle. The Johnston didn't. She went down fighting, and 186 men went down with her. I was one of the lucky ones who got off, got pulled from the water by another ship after floating for hours, covered in fuel oil, deafened by the guns. Lucky, that's what they called me. Lucky. October 25th, 1944. We were off the coast of Samar in the Philippines. The escort carriers we were protecting were launching planes for strikes on Leyte, routine operation. We'd done it a dozen times. The morning was beautiful. I remember that. Dawn breaking over the Pacific, sky turning from black to purple to pink. The water was calm. You could hear the engines of the carriers, the splash of waves against our hull. Normal sounds, peaceful sounds. I was on the 5-inch gun, mount number 2, port side. My crew was eating breakfast, cold cuts and coffee, between our watch rotations. We were laughing about something, can't remember what. Doesn't matter. Just normal guys being normal, not knowing that in about 20 minutes everything would go to hell. Jenkins, he was our gun captain, was telling a story about a girl he'd met in Pearl Harbor. Real funny guy, Jenkins. Always had us laughing. His voice was deep, kind of gravelly. I can't remember what it sounded like anymore, just that it was deep. The ringing in my ears has drowned out the memory. 06:45 hours. Someone on the bridge started shouting. Anti-aircraft guns on one of the carriers opened up. We looked toward where they were shooting and saw it. A Japanese float plane, circling, spotting for something. Then we saw what it was spotting for. Ships, Japanese ships, lots of them. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers. The biggest ones I'd ever seen. They'd come through San Bernardino Strait during the night, and now they were bearing down on our little force of baby carriers and tin can destroyers. We were outgunned, out-armored, outnumbered. Those Jap battleships had 18-inch guns. We had 5-inch guns. They had foot-thick armor plating. We had maybe an inch of steel between us and the ocean. It wasn't a battle. It was an execution. But we fought anyway, because that's what you do. General quarters sounded. Loudest alarm I'd ever heard. We scrambled to our positions. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears, hear my breath coming fast and shallow. The last quiet sounds before the world exploded. Commander Evans, our captain, got on the 1MC. His voice was calm, steady. A large Japanese fleet has been contacted. They are 15 miles away and headed in our direction. They are believed to have 4 battleships, 8 cruisers, and a number of destroyers. This will be a fight against overwhelming odds. This will be a fight to the death. God be with us all. Then he ordered us to attack. Attack. A destroyer charging battleships, like a house cat attacking a pack of wolves. The engines roared to full power. The ship heeled over as we turned toward the enemy, toward certain death. And then the guns opened up. That's when the noise started, the real noise, the noise that would never stop. Nothing prepares you for the sound of a 5-inch gun firing. It's not just loud. Loud doesn't cover it. It's a physical force, a concussion that hits your entire body. Your chest cavity vibrates, your teeth rattle, your eyeballs shake in their sockets. The pressure wave slaps you like a giant hand. And we were firing as fast as we could load. Every 6 seconds, another shell. Every 6 seconds, another world-ending boom that made your ears scream and your brain rattle against your skull. Boom, load, boom, load, boom, load. We fell into a rhythm. Had to. Stop thinking. Just move. Grab the shell, 54 pounds of high explosive, swing it to the breech, slam it home, step back, boom, and grab the next one. The brass casings would eject, still hot, clanging on the deck. The gun would recoil, the whole mount shaking. The smell of cordite would fill the air, thick and choking. And the noise, always the noise. But that was just our gun. Multiply that by every gun on the ship. The other 5-inch mounts, the 40-millimeter quad mounts, the 20-millimeter guns, every weapon we had firing at once, and then the torpedoes launched. The whoosh and roar as they left the tubes, motors screaming as they raced toward the enemy. The Johnston was making smoke, too. Black, oily smoke pouring from our stacks, trying to hide the carriers. The smoke generators added their own roar to the cacophony. It was too loud to think. Too loud to hear orders unless someone was screaming directly in your ear. Too loud to hear anything except the guns and your own heartbeat and the ringing that had already started in your ears. Then the Japanese started shooting back. Their shells made a sound I'll never forget. A freight train. That's what everyone says. And it's true. Like a freight train flying through the air, getting louder and louder until it screams past you or hits something or lands in the water. The first one that got close, I mean really close, I thought it was the end. The sound was so loud, so all-encompassing, that for a second I thought I was already dead. Thought that's what death sounded like. A scream of metal and air and velocity that would tear you apart. It missed. Landed in the water maybe 50 yards off our starboard side. The explosion threw up a column of water 300 feet high. When it came down, it hit the ship like rain. Heavy, cold rain that drenched us all. Boom, load, boom, load, boom, load. We kept firing. What else could we do? More shells came in. 18-inch shells from the battleship Yamato. 14-inch shells from Congo and Haruna. 8-inch shells from the cruisers. They were bracketing us, walking their fire closer with each salvo. The noise was continuous now. No breaks, no pauses. Just an endless roar of guns and shells and explosions that went on and on and on. I couldn't hear Jenkins shouting orders anymore. Could only see his mouth moving. Could only follow his hand signals. Point, load, fire. Point, load, fire. My ears were ringing so loud I thought my head would split. Every explosion made it worse. Every shot from our own gun drove ice picks deeper into my brain. But we kept firing. Through the noise. Through the pain. Through the fear. Because stopping meant dying, and we weren't dead yet. Not yet. 0730 hours. We'd been firing for 45 minutes straight. My arms felt like lead. My ears were destroyed. I knew that already, could feel the damage. Blood was trickling from my right ear, warm against my neck. But we were landing hits. I could see them. Orange flashes on the enemy ships. We'd hit a cruiser hard enough to make it fall out of formation, smoke pouring from its superstructure. Then the Johnston took her first serious hit. An 8-inch shell from a Japanese cruiser. Punched through our thin armor like it was paper. Hit somewhere amidships below the waterline. The ship shuddered. Not like when we fired our guns. This was different. This was the ship itself screaming in pain. A grinding, tearing sound of metal being ripped apart, of water rushing into spaces that should have been dry. The damage alarm sounded, high-pitched wailing that added to the chaos. Men were screaming below decks. I could hear it even over the guns, screaming for help, screaming in pain. We kept firing. Another hit, this one after, took out one of our aft gun mounts. I knew the men on that mount, played cards with them, ate meals with them. The explosion sounded different than the near misses, more final, the sound of men dying. The Johnston was listing now, taking on water, slowing down. But we kept shooting, kept fighting. The Japanese were close now, maybe 5,000 yards. Close enough I could see their muzzle flashes. Close enough that when they fired, the sound would hit you almost as fast as the shell. Boom from their ship, boom from ours answering, boom of the shell landing, boom, 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 until it was all one continuous roar that had no beginning and no end. Jenkins went down. A piece of shrapnel from a near miss caught him in the chest. He fell without a sound. At least I didn't hear one. Just saw him drop, saw the blood, saw his mouth open in what might have been a scream. I couldn't hear it, couldn't hear anything but the ringing and the guns. I took over as gun captain, kept us firing. What else could I do? Stop and help him? He was dead or dying, and helping him wouldn't change that. All I could do was keep loading, keep firing, keep fighting. The noise had become my whole world. It was inside me, outside me, all around me. I was drowning in sound, suffocating in it, and still we kept firing, until we couldn't anymore. 0945 hours. The order came to abandon ship. The Johnston was done, dead in the water, listing heavily, fires burning throughout. We'd lasted 3 hours against overwhelming odds. Now she was sinking and we had to get off. But the battle was still raging. The noise didn't stop just because we were abandoning ship. I went over the side, jumped from the listing deck into the Pacific. The water should have been quiet, should have been peaceful compared to the battle. But it wasn't. Sound travels through water, better than air. Every explosion, every shell hitting the water, every depth charge. I could hear it all, feel it. The pressure waves traveled through the ocean and hit you like fists, squeezed your internal organs, made your head feel like it would burst. I floated in my life jacket, watching the Johnston sink, watching her stern rise up as her bow went under. The sounds she made as she died, groaning, tearing, popping, echoed through the water. The sound of a ship's death agony. Men were in the water all around me. Some screaming for help, some praying, some silent, too injured or too shocked to make any sound at all. I couldn't hear most of it. My ears were ruined. Everything sounded muffled, distant, like it was happening underwater, even though my head was above the surface. Except the ringing. The ringing was clear as a bell, loud and sharp and constant. The battle continued above us. The carriers were escaping. The destroyers and destroyer escorts had bought them enough time. We'd done our job. But the Japs were still shooting, still trying to finish off the smaller ships. Shells kept landing in the water. Each one sent a shock wave through the ocean, through our bodies. Some of the men closer to the explosions, the pressure killed them, burst their organs. They'd just stop moving, start floating face down, killed by sound, by pressure waves, by noise. We floated for hours. The battle moved away, got quieter. Or maybe my hearing was just getting worse. Hard to tell. But the explosions got more distant. The gunfire faded. Eventually, there was just the sound of the ocean. Waves, wind, men crying, men praying, men dying. And the ringing in my ears, always the ringing. A destroyer escort found us late that afternoon, pulled us from the water. I was so cold I couldn't move, couldn't speak. They wrapped me in blankets, gave me water, asked me questions I couldn't hear. I tried to tell them about the Johnston, about Commander Evans, about Jenkins, about the 3 hours of hell we'd just survived. But I couldn't hear my own voice, didn't know if I was shouting or whispering, didn't know if the words were even coming out right. The corpsman looked in my ears, shook his head, said something to someone else. I couldn't hear what. Later on the ship, he wrote it down on a piece of paper. Severe acoustic trauma, permanent hearing damage, possible complete loss in right ear. I stared at the paper, at those words, permanent, loss. The battle had taken my hearing, had taken 186 of my shipmates, had taken the Johnston, and left me with nothing but ringing and silence. It's 1952 now. I'm 29 years old. Work at a print shop in Des Moines. Never went back to the farm after the war. Couldn't. Too quiet there. The silence would drive me crazy. The city is better. There's always noise. Cars, people, machinery. Covers up the ringing a little bit. Gives me something to focus on besides the sound inside my head. I got hearing aids last year. They help some. Let me have conversations without asking people to repeat themselves 5 times. Let me pretend I'm normal. But they can't fix what's broken. Can't restore what the guns took from me. Music sounds wrong now. All tinny and distant. I used to love music. Used to listen to big band on the radio, go dancing with girls, enjoy the sound of a good song. Now it's just noise. Distorted, incomplete noise that reminds me of what I lost. My wife, married her in 47, she's patient. Speaks up when she talks to me. Faces me so I can read her lips. Doesn't get mad when I ask her to repeat things. She's good about it. But sometimes I see the frustration. Sometimes I see her start to say something, then stop, decide it's not worth the effort of making me understand. That hurts worse than the shells did. Being too much trouble to talk to. Being damaged goods. I can't go to movies anymore. Can't follow the dialogue. Can't hear the quiet parts. And when there's action, when there's gunfire or explosions, my whole body seizes up. My heart races. My hands shake. The ringing in my ears gets so loud I have to leave. People look at me funny when I stumble out of the theater, gasping, covered in sweat. They don't understand. How could they? Fireworks are impossible. 4th of July is my worst day every year. Everyone else is celebrating, watching the pretty lights, enjoying the bangs and booms. I'm in my house with the windows closed and pillows over my ears, trying not to have a breakdown. Trying not to be back on the Johnston with the Japanese shells screaming in and Jenkins bleeding out on the deck and the guns firing boom, boom, boom until your brain turns to liquid. The ringing never stops. Never. Sometimes it's a high whine. Sometimes it's lower, like a diesel engine running inside my skull. Sometimes it pulses in time with my heartbeat, but it's always there. At night, when everything else goes quiet, it's all I can hear. My wife sleeping beside me, the house settling, the distant sound of traffic, and the ringing, louder than everything, a permanent reminder of October 25th, 1944. They're recording this interview today, asking me about the Battle of Samar, about what it was like on the Johnston, about what I remember. What I remember is the noise. That's what I remember. Not the strategy or the tactics or the heroism, just the noise. The endless, ear-splitting, brain-melting noise that destroyed something inside me that can never be repaired. 186 men died on the Johnston. I survived. But I lost something, too. Lost the ability to hear properly. Lost the ability to enjoy silence. Lost the ability to exist in the world without this constant reminder of what I went through. Jenkins died at his gun. Commander Evans went down with his ship. They don't have to live with the ringing. Don't have to wake up every morning to the sound of their own personal war still playing inside their heads. Sometimes I think they were the lucky ones. The battle lasted 3 hours. 3 hours of noise so intense it changed me at a molecular level. Rewired my brain. Broke something that can't be fixed. And I've lived with the echoes every day since. Every moment. Every breath. Silence is the loudest thing I've ever heard. The silence where voices used to be. The silence where Jenkins used to laugh. The silence where the Johnston used to sail. All that silence, and all I can hear is ringing. The Battle off Samar ended on October 25th, 1944. Commander Evans was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. The Johnston was commended for extraordinary heroism. We became legends, heroes. But I didn't come home a hero. I came home deaf. Came home with a permanent reminder of those 3 hours drilled into my skull. Came home to find that peace was louder than war, because in peace there's nothing to cover up the damage. The guns are silent now, have been for 8 years. But I still hear them firing, still hear the shells screaming, still hear Jenkins trying to shout orders I can't understand anymore. I survived the Battle off Samar. But I'm still fighting it every day, still drowning in the noise, still trying to find a moment of real quiet that will never come. The ringing will stop when I die, not before. Until then, I'm still on the Johnston, still loading shells, still firing at an enemy I can't defeat, still losing my hearing one boom at a time. We never came home. Not really. Part of me is still on that ship, still in that moment when the world became nothing but noise. And I'll be there forever, trapped in sound, until the day the ringing finally stops.